Let's move on and let's talk about a team who I believe is on the rise. And I know I'm not the only other person who believes this because they have a record to back it up. And that's Vic Schaefer and the Longhorns. I mean, they had 29 wins last year. We're going back-to-back trips to Elite Eight. It's the most wins for Texas since 2016. This team looks exciting on paper, on the court, wherever you want to put it down. When you talk about teams in competition within the Big 12, there's a lot of it. And we're going to talk about a few teams in the Big 12 today, but we're going to start off with Texas because I think they are, by a small margin, Steve, the front runner in the Big 12.
And by them adding through the transfer pool 2 key parts. Okay. Sonia Morris, a little dynamite guard, and Taylor Jones from Oregon. Morris came from DePaul. You add that into what's already in place. And I think now Schaefer really does have the depth that he desires. I think he can afford to rotate more players in and play in an aggressive style. And certainly throughout the Big 12, aggressiveness is probably the one thing you notice. The tenacity in the Big 12 on the women's side that may be unmatched in any conference. I mean, the SEC is a great conference, but I don't know that tenacity and that hard-nosed, that hard edge is as present there in the SEC as you do have it in the Big 12. But by having that depth, maybe they get over that hump, because it just seemed they got to the 8 and they were impressive in conference play, the conference tournament, the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament. But then it just seemed that they just didn't have the horses to run with the teams that would eventually go on to the Final Four. And I think Schaefer will have this team ready, and the conference will help Texas get ready for the tournament grind. And again, I don't know if this is a year for them to get to the Final Four, but I do think that they're going to be certainly in the top 10 all year, and wouldn't be surprising to see them in the top 5 for parts of the year.
Yeah, I think their best bet is winning the Big 12 and getting themselves into the second weekend, maybe, getting themselves to the Elite Eight. I can see them, getting departed in the Elite Eight, and I still think that's really successful. That's 3 Elite Eights in a row. So obviously they're looking for that next step. Does it happen this year? I think they have potential, but there's a lot of really good basketball squads out there. I think point guard Rory Harmon is up for a huge breakout season. If she can do that, then I think we find that we get over that hump, we make it to the Final Four. I think that's where I'm going to even put that line, because this team is just as good as last season, just as good as the team before. 29 wins is a lot of wins, Steve. Can they do that again? Can they get a really good seed into the tournament? It's hard to say because, again, 29 wins is a lot. But I wouldn't be shocked to see it happen. I wouldn't be shocked to see them win the Big 12 and continue deep into the NCAA March Madness.
Yeah, there's one thing I want to touch on that this Texas program has done, and it really is. We talk a lot about it when we do our college football podcasts, or when we're talking about Duke or North Carolina, Villanova, teams that have tradition, on the men's side of it. Women's squads, as a rule, are a lot more involved with their fan base and in their community. Now, this just past weekend, Texas and DePaul had an exhibition, and all of the proceeds went to raise funds for a project to rebuild the elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. And this was spearheaded by their transfer in from DePaul. And she reached out to her old team and said, hey, would you come down for this exhibition scrimmage, whatever it is? We're going to raise all this money. Vic Schaefer himself said, I will donate personally $1,000 for every 1,000 tickets that get sold. They were hoping for 10,000. The attendance was around 3,500, so not quite what they wanted. But that's what makes programs special and what brings teams together. So that's where Dane Texas is a dangerous wild card in all of this because I think there is a team unity here. I mean, I'm not saying that other teams don't have that unity, but there's something special here with this particular squad.
Yeah.
You know, it's for them to rally behind not only their community, but have that initiative spearheaded by a transfer. That says a lot about what this Texas team thinks they can do.
You talk about that. That's a way more important than I think you're giving it credit to. And the story is fantastic, by the way. But cohesion, especially at this time in college basketball, whether it's the men's or the women's, whatever you're looking at, with this new transfer portal process, the one and dones, whatever problem or solution, however you want to call it, it is some sort of problem to the actual program itself, right? Because the cohesion is normally not there. Now, we have some teams taking certain strategies where they do see juniors, seniors stay with the team for 3-4 years, sometimes even with the COVID year, 5-6 years now, right? And then we see success with that happening. This could be one of those teams that have cohesion and it just gets them over the top. This Big 12 is not anything to bat an eye at. We've noticed this past year in almost every sport we paid attention to, the Big 12 is absolutely one of the deepest conferences from top to bottom. It's not going unmentioned in almost every sport we talk about here on SlasherU, right? So cohesion could be exactly what Texas needs to find themselves getting over that hump and getting into their first Final Four after making it to the Elite Eight 2 years in a row, maybe getting a 30-win season and getting the most wins since 2016 instead of what they did last year. I mean, that's pretty impressive.